Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mindset Monday. I hope you're doing wonderfully. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far and had a great weekend. This is our first official Mindset Monday for the month of March. And I wanted to kick it off by talking about, first of all, exam strategy. That's going to be our main topic for today. But you'll see, maybe I won't spoil the surprise. What you'll see is that this is actually a two-part Mindset Monday. So, our primary topic and our focus for today is going to be about if you find yourself worrying about your exam strategy. I see this all the time. I'm often in conversation with CPA candidates, and one of the questions that I get often is, oh, I'm really concerned about if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm doing enough to pass. Am I do I need to change my approach? And do I need to maybe switch things up a little bit? And this happens a lot. Sometimes there's a great reason to change up your strategy, and other times, more often than not, this is actually based in fear. And that's what I wanted to chat with you about today. So, if you find yourself often worrying about or thinking about changing your exam strategy or evaluating whether or not your study strategy is the right one for you, this is a great video for you. I'm glad you're here. So first and foremost, when it comes to creating a study strategy or an exam strategy, there are so many resources out there on the internet. There are loads of experts, similar to do similar to work to what I do. Other experts that are experts simply because they have passed the exam themselves and have put out there for the rest of you the strategy that they used to either study for and hopefully pass their exams. There's also the resources from the study materials. They offer suggested best practices for how to utilize their materials to help you pass exams. So there is no lack of information out there available to you about different ways that you can approach the material, different strategies you could use in terms of studying to help you pass these exams. Now, sometimes more isn't always better. Sometimes what that causes is a little bit of overwhelm. Oh my gosh, now there's like 100 different ways I could pass this exam. Some of them even directly contradict each other. So what do I do now? How do I know what's the best approach? So the most important thing is not so much what decision you make, but that you make a decision. So listen to that again. It's not so important what decision you make, but that you make a decision. So it doesn't matter which strategy you land on, which approach you ultimately land on. The most important part is that you choose an approach, that you choose a study approach, most importantly, that's going to work for you. So it doesn't matter if something else worked for everybody you know. If what you know about yourself and what helped you to be successful in college and in high school and any other studies you've done, if that's not aligned with what has worked for you or what you know works for you to learn, ditch it. Don't do it. It's got to be the thing that works for you. Who cares what worked for other people? That's why I'm so often hesitant about sharing what I did to pass the exam, because frankly, it doesn't matter. What worked for me may not work for you. So you have to first decide. So I'd invite you to evaluate all of your options, do some research, and whether it's just trusting the study materials that you've purchased and going through their best practices, if it is collaborating or incorporating some other resources or approaches into that strategy, all those are good things. But think about what your approach is going to be ahead of time, make a decision, and then stick with it. Now, one thing I would encourage you to do is not look for the shortcut strategy. Of all the things that I've encountered, all the different approaches and ways that people have passed exams, the thing that is consistent over my years of working with candidates is that shortcuts don't work. They're really risky. The chances of you passing an exam or passing all 4 exams by using some shortcut techniques are really, really low. It really relies on you lining up your exam exactly perfect with the information you've covered or with the things that happen to be in your wheelhouse. And it just, to me, it leaves too much to chance. If you are a risk taker and that's the approach you want to, by all means. But that's the one thing that I would encourage you against, is looking for shortcuts, looking for ways to cut corners and skip things, or do this 10 times faster than anybody's ever done it before. There's a reason that this takes a long time to study for and effectively prepare for exams. So now let's come back to the worry. So part of this is having a strategy. So if you haven't done that, if you've just sort of gone in the past winging it, seeing how it goes, part of the approach to eliminating that worry or concern you have about your strategy might be to, first of all, create one. So think and be intentional about what that strategy is going to be. Now, if you've done that already and you still find yourself worrying about it or concerned about whether or not it's the right one for you, that's the part that's based in fear. So, whenever you're experiencing fear or anxiety, it's usually about anticipating something that's going to happen in the future. Normally, in this case, I'm afraid that this is not going to be enough to help me pass. I'm afraid, in other words, that I'm going to fail this exam. Now, that hasn't happened yet. But what it does is it distracts you from the present. Now, when you're distracted in the present, that means that your study hours are not going to be as effective. You are studying, but in the meantime, in the back of your mind, you're worrying and you're utilizing energy to worry about whether or not this approach is right for you. So, are you actually thinking about bonds and derivatives or whatever you're studying right now, or are you thinking about what's going to happen if you fail? Now, if we can quiet down that worry, quiet down that fear, and just focus on being present, you're likely to have a much easier time studying. You're going to be better able to grasp the material. Things will click. You'll be able to focus more effectively and have better results. What happens is, if we don't get that fear and worry under control, it impacts your study sessions, your study hours, your study effectiveness. Then your results, as you can imagine, if your studying is not very effective, your results aren't going to be as good. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm worried about failing. It impacts my ability to focus when I study. And then, of course, I'm actually putting it out there and giving myself a pretty good chance to not pass this exam because my studying has not been effective. Or you have to take extra time to re-review and recover content that you've already covered in the past. So that lack of presence creates poor results. This becomes a cycle, not one that you want to be on, likely. So we've got to focus on choosing a strategy and then stick to that strategy. Really trust that it is going to work for you, especially if you've put that time and thought into what that strategy should be for you. And what I want to challenge you with when you're faced with the fear, number one is to take a moment, step back. Don't try to push through the fear or the anxiety that might be creeping up on you. Take a step back, take a moment, consider a gratitude practice. Just thinking about all the things you're grateful for, maybe even doing a gratitude meditation or a little bit of gratitude journaling. Fear and gratitude cannot coincide. So if you're afraid, one of my favorite practices that I implement in my life every single day is when I get scared or have to do something that's a little bit scary, I start with gratitude and I think about and really presence myself to the things I am grateful for. Now, try it. Just try it for yourself. I was skeptical at first. I thought I could be grateful and scared at the same time. No, you can't. You really can't. It changes the physiology. It changes what's going on in your mind when you're thinking about the things that you're grateful for. So that's one way to do it. The next thing to challenge yourself with is to simply take one action that will move you forward towards your goal. So even if you're afraid, even if you're concerned that your strategy isn't the right one for you, what is one thing you can do that you know will get you closer to your goal? Might be tackling a simulation, might be running through some note cards, reading a section of the text. It could be anything, big or small, but take one action in the face of your fear and get in the habit of doing that. Just letting that fear shut you down and take you out of action is not, again, that becomes that self-fulfilling cycle where now you're not putting in the time, you're not getting the studying that you need to, and then you're not going to get the results. Okay. So those are two things you can do in the face of fear when fear is present in the moment. Now, what I wanted to touch on, and this is sort of that two-part aspect that I hinted to before, is where does this fear come from? Where does this worrying come from? Again, we talked about how it's anticipating things that could happen in the future. But one of the things I notice in myself and in my clients is that it's much more likely to happen. Fear and worry are much more likely to creep in when you're not taking good care of yourself. So if you have started to forego other things in your life that really fill you up and recharge your batteries and source your energy, things like it could be meditation, it could be prayer, it could be other spirituality practices, eating good food, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, getting exercise, all of those things are tools and things that we can do to recharge our batteries and really source yourself full of energy. When we stop doing those things or don't have enough of them in place, what tends to happen is we start to fatigue, we start to burn out. That is when it opens the door for fear and worry to creep in. It's like leaving your garage door open. Everybody can walk straight into your house then. Doing your well-being practices, recharging your batteries, taking excellent care of yourself can close the garage door from all of those things that we don't want to let in. Fear, worry, concern, burnout, all of it. We don't have time for that stuff. So what you might notice is that sometimes when you've got those well-being practices in place, you don't experience so much fear, worry, concern, hopelessness, frustration. But when you do have them in place, you may not experience those things as often, or you can bounce back more quickly when they do happen. So, my invitation, number 3 for today, would be to please reevaluate how you spend your time on a daily basis. I know that sort of the knee jerk reaction, especially when you've already got a full time job and you're already busy, and now we're layering in studying on top of all of that. One of the knee jerk reactions is to eliminate some of the other things that are part of your well being. So it might be, I don't have time to go to the gym anymore. I don't have time to wake up early to do my meditation. Instead, I'm going to wake up early and study. I'm going to replace those things. What I recommend is that you have it be both. So have time, carve out time for meditation, for spirituality, for exercise, for rest. All of those things are critically important. When they're all in place and you do them consistently, what you'll notice is that you are much more able to show up powerfully to your study sessions. Your learning is going to come so much easier. You're going to increase your ability to focus. All of these things are going to help your studying be more effective and efficient, which is going to obviously get you closer to those results. And the more positive results you're seeing from your studying, again, I just think of that as another opportunity to close the doors and, lock the windows to keep all that fear and worry out. It will still pop up. It's still going to creep in somehow. We're trying to minimize the number of places that it can get in. We're trying to minimize the hold that it gets on you when it gets in and really help you to be able to bounce back from that more quickly. So, key takeaways, just in summary. Number 1, it's not so important what you choose, but that you choose a strategy. Choose a strategy that's going to work for you. Embrace it. Stick with it. Now, if you're not getting the results, maybe reevaluate, but give yourself some time. Make sure to give that strategy a full and fair shot before reevaluating and changing it up completely. Number 2 is to practice taking action in the face of fear, whether that's doing one thing to move yourself forward or practicing gratitude when you feel scared, doing those things to get yourself back. And so you can go and carry forward with your studies, studying for the day. And then finally, taking care of your well-being, just as a foundational practice to support you with all that you have going on in your life, especially with this exam. And I think that will really make a difference for you and keep that fear and worry at bay. Keep you in a positive frame of mind and increase your ability to learn and retain information. That's what we're about here. I'm all about trying to help you make this studying, make preparing for this exam and passing this exam as smooth of a process as possible, as painless of a process as we can. Minimize the sacrifice, minimize the struggle, and have you get the results that you ultimately want. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you're going to take on as a well-being practice, some ways to source your well-being and your energy. And if you have any questions or if you'd like to set up a conversation with me, I'll include the link below. I'd love to have a 30-minute session with you to talk through your strategy and support you in any way that I can. I promise you will leave better than when you showed up and ready to conquer your day. I look forward to speaking with you next week. Have a great rest of your day.